Howdy everyone, it's Sam. I hope you're doing really well. If you're new around these parts, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel by the end of the video. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support as always. We are on the horizon of the 2022 NRL draw being released, and we're all going to be sitting with a lead pencil circling the certain fixtures that we would like to go to next year, hoping that there's going to be 100% capacity across the nation as well when the season does eventually kick off. And I thought it would be fun to express and tell you guys some of my favorite stories, my favorite game day experiences from 11 down to 1, just in anticipation and celebration of the 2022 NRL draw being unveiled. So here they are. Number 11, Raiders versus Cowboys from Jio Stadium, round 17, 2017. At kickoff, which was 7:30 p.m. on a cold July winter's evening, the temperature got down to -7 degrees. I just needed a coffee thinking about that friggin' night, fair dinkum. For the Cowboys to come down and do what they did is kind of amazing. It was one of the coldest nights in Canberra's history, but all the kudos has to obviously go to Michael Morgan, who showed us glimpses of what he was going to do in the final series that year. He had over 70 touches of the ball. He set up 2 tries, scored 2 tries, his defense was on song, his kicking game was out of this world, and his running meters were just as good. They were in the top echelon by the end of the 2017 as far as his stats for this game goes. 1 year later, these two sides would meet at Jio Stadium on a cold July evening, and the temperature got down to -7 degrees again. Thank goodness that didn't happen 3 years in a row, otherwise I would have copped hypothermia, fair dinkum. Number 10, Raiders versus Dragons, round 19, 2017 from Jio Stadium. Only 2 weeks after the aforementioned contest, these two sides played out a really fun game of rugby league, and whilst it wasn't -7 degrees on this night, there was still a sprinkling of rain. It was a strange but really cool atmosphere. People had their jumpers off, and by Canberra's standards, it was kind of a mild night, even though there was still rain sprinkling about. And the game itself went to golden point extra time. And in the 82nd minute, Aiden Caesar put in a huge booming kick. Ended up being a 40-20, and it was the play that really got the Raiders into a position to win the game. And do you remember Dave Taylor? He used to play for the Raiders, and he offloaded the ball inside the 10-meter zone to Elliot Whitehead, who went pretty much under the crossbar to score the match-winning try right in front of my mate and I had never seen a regular season golden point extra time game ever, and my mate had never been to or seen a golden point extra time game in all of his days. Yeah, this is a really fun game of rugby league, and I'd definitely put this up there as one of my favorite game day experiences ever. 9, round 13, 2011, Raiders versus Cowboys, Gio Stadium. This was the first time I had ever been to a game by myself. I had my car, I had a job, my license, so I was all good to rock and roll, but I just didn't have anyone to go with me, and I'm glad I mustered up the courage to do so, because the game that eventuated before everyone's eyes that day inside Jio Stadium was pretty incredible stuff. The Raiders got out to a 22-0 lead, and it didn't look like I had made the right option in attending said contest. But in the 25th minute of the game, Josh Dugan suffered a knee injury, and he had to come off for Terry Campese. And Terry Campese got injured in the semi-final, the second semi-final the year before, and he hadn't played a game throughout 2011 at all. So this was his big return to massive Raiders fanfare. And unfortunately, Terry Campese only lasted 10 minutes before he had to be subbed off for an injury. It was a re-aggravation to his knee, unfortunately, and that was sort of the catalyst to take the Raiders out of the zone and knock the wind out of their sails. So the Cowboys were down 22 points to nil with approximately 15 minutes to go in the first half, and the halftime score was 22 points to 18. And you could say it was off Jonathan Thurston, Matt Bowen's back, Aaron Payne, but the standout performance in this contest was the young bull himself, Tariq Sims, who scored 2 tries and absolutely slayed the opposition in this game. And early in the second half, they leveled things up, and it was 22 points all for a little while there before the Raiders scored a penalty goal. But inside the final 8 minutes of play, the North Queensland Cowboys scored 3 exhilarating tries. Tariq Sims broke the line, passed it to Aaron Payne, who scored while he was running towards me. I was sitting up this end, the second half, and all the action was coming my way in the last few minutes of that game. Khalifa Faifalaua scored a double inside the last 4 minutes of the game, and the final scoreline was 40 points to 24. I am so glad I ended up going to this game, and this comeback by the Cowboys, this game, it doesn't get mentioned nearly enough as what it should, in my opinion. Number 8, 2008 State of Origin, Game 3 decider. So I was only 17 years old at this stage. I didn't have a license or a car. I had a job though, but I still asked my younger brother by 2 years if he could please fork out the money and pay for my ticket, because I had a girlfriend at the time, and I asked him, I'll pay you back, I want to impress her. He goes, yes, okay. Took me a couple of years to pay him back, but I eventually got there. And a couple of weeks before Game 3, me and the girlfriend broke up. And so I immediately looked to my mate and asked him, do you want to go? And it took him 2 seconds to come back with a resounding yes. And we took a different route to ANZ Stadium. We stayed at his relative's place in Dapto. So we went from Canberra to Dapto, and charming town, charming train station as well. We caught the train from Dapto to ANZ Stadium, and he and I had never been inside ANZ Stadium when it was at full capacity as what it was for this game. And the contest itself, we were so lucky. It was such a good game of rugby league. There were punch-ons, biffs. Scott Prince broke his forearm inside the first 20-15 minutes of the clash. Jared Hayne and Michael Crocker suffered concussions. The final points came in the 68th minute, where Jonathan Thurston broke the line inside his own half and passed the ball on the inside to Billy Slater to score the match-winning and overall series-winning try down our end, where my mate and I were sitting. And you know, I was only 17, my mate was 18, so it didn't stop me from having some alcoholic beverages that night. And after we had finished yahooing and mucking around, we caught the train back to Dapto to stay with his relative. And I should probably stop there, let me tell you. Number 7, round 17, 2019, Roosters versus Cowboys from Central Coast Stadium. In the lead up to this Sunday, I had worked 2 night shifts in a row. On the Friday night, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then Saturday, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. And in between those night shifts, there was some sort of road work happening out the front of where I used to live. And my sleep got interrupted by a few hours. So I was up at about 1300 on Saturday arvo. So my shift finished at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, and I got back and I had myself a shower, got myself ready, And to go from Canberra to Gosford, we had to leave sort of early, especially for a 2 o'clock kickoff up there in Gosford. So we must have hit the road, my mother and I, hit the road at about approximately 8 a.m. And we took turns driving, and we must have got up there at about 12:30 p.m, maybe even 1 p.m. And it was such a picturesque day. Couldn't have asked for a better afternoon. It's such a beautiful boutique stadium. You should all go check out Central Coast Stadium. It's an absolute corker. And I'm so glad that I did go because, yes, the Cowboys got the win, but weeks leading up to the contest, I said, Ma, I don't think we should go because the Roosters are the premiers. Cowboys are going like bastards. I just didn't think we should go. But in the end, North Queensland got the win, thanks to Jake Clifford, by and large, really. And by the time my head hit the pillow that night, I think I had been awake for approximately 35 hours. It's absolutely knackered, but gee whiz, it was worth it. Number 6, round 5, 2021, Tigers versus Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval. My mother and I had already bought tickets to go to this game. My mum had never been to Leichhardt. I fortunately had, but never on a Sunday afternoon. And we bought tickets, and then it was announced untimely so that Tommy Raudonikis had passed away in the days leading up to the contest, and it only buoyed us more to definitely go to the game. But boy howdy, speaking for Cowboys fans for a moment, concerned was the word leading up to that Sunday afternoon game, because I was anticipating an absolute bashing from the West Tigers. They would have been emotionally fueled, and they were anything but in that first half. That first half from North Queensland was one of the most entertaining, enthralling, best performances in a half from the Cowboys in a number of seasons. They were awesome to watch. Yeah, the West Tigers fans booed their own boys when the halftime siren went, but really you could hear a pin drop inside Leichhardt Oval. And at halftime, went to the Cowboy corner where it's situated, tucked away underneath those big fig trees. And we started shaking hands. We've won this game already at halftime. And then come full time, we just had to take the oxygen masks off because fair dinkum, they made it hard, North Queensland, to get their first win of the season. And it was all the more sweet because I attended round 1 this season and Penrith flogged us. I attended round 4 just the week prior and Cronulla absolutely dismantled North Queensland. So third time was the charm indeed, and it was just an amazing atmosphere at Leichhardt on a golden Sunday afternoon. It really is that good, people. You should go and check it out. Number 5, round 15, 2015, Raiders versus Cowboys from Jio Stadium. This game was so good. It was such a high quality contest of rugby league that doesn't get spoken about enough. It was a golden Saturday afternoon at Gio Stadium. Me and 2 other friends started drinking early in the morning, drank to our heart's content during the game, and drank well on into the night, at least in my case anyway, because the Cowboys won on the siren, during the siren. Jonathan Thurston played State of Origin just a few days prior, and there was concerns about him backing up for North Queensland. JT said, nah, I'm going to come out and help me boys play, and thank goodness he did, because as I just mentioned, it was a tight contest. The lead changed multiple times, and it was by Jonathan Thurston's right boot, as the siren was going, to slot that field goal down on my end, to watch it sail over. I screamed, nearly lost me balance, just partied well on into the night. It was such a good game. Great to be there with friends. Just so ultra lucky to be there that Saturday arvo in Canberra. Number 4, the second semi-final between Eels and Cowboys in 2017 from ANZ Stadium. Unfortunately, I didn't attend the elimination final the week before. I said to Ma, I don't care what sort of costs incurred on me wallet. I don't care. We're going. We went and our seats were just next to one of those two gaps on ANZ Stadium. And just before kickoff, you had the ground crew asking fans how you're going, where you come from. And I had never been interviewed before. And the gentleman saw me, strolled up the stairs towards me, and he had a sit-down interview with me. And let me tell you, it is surreal to hear your own voice blaring around ANZ Stadium. It was so cool. But then he asked me a question without notice, and my brain just went pfft. I think I simply retorted back into his microphone, 2015 was a pretty good year. And I'll never forget when Semi Radradra scored that first try from 90 metres out. He scored the length of the field try. And for a joint that was only half full at 40,000 plus, gee whiz, she was a loud experience. But Michael Morgan once more, and it sort of goes without saying because we all know how good he was, but he was sensational against the Parramatta Eels that night. And so too was Kyle Felt, I thought. I thought he had a really good game too. Really happy I attended this game, and it would be fourth on my list of best game day experiences I've had. Number 3, round 14, 2019, Cowboys Tigers at 1300 Smile Stadium, or as I like to call her, Dairy Farmers Stadium, the old girl. It was my one and only time visiting 1300 Smile Stadium, and I'm so glad I got to do it. I would have kicked my own ass if I never got myself in order to go up and check it out myself. I had not been on a plane in about 8 or 9 years, and the night before, the mate that I was living with at the time said, "We're going to drink to you, mate. Hope you have a good weekend." Caught the plane at approximately 8 a.m. the next morning, and when that plane took off, my guts, man. Oh, dude, it was the wrong choice. I stayed at the Sugar Shaker, as it's affectionately known, also known correctly as the Hotel Grand Chancellor. And if you know where the location is, it's directly across the road to the Cowboys Leagues Club. So I was just in the perfect spot. It's even more perfect nowadays considering when you think about where QCB Stadium is actually located as well. So I had a day of bus touring and I had a sneaky relax by the pool inside the Ville Resort Casino. To this day, I don't know if I was allowed to do that or not, but I bloody did it anyway. And then the next day, it was game day and I spent my time a little bit inside the hotel, a large part inside the Cowboys Leagues Club, just chilling and soaking it all up. And I caught the bus from the Leagues Club. A route, it didn't take us to out the front of 1300, took us to the arse end of 1300 Smile Stadium. And when I walked through those turnstiles at the stadium, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was that high on cloud 9. It's not funny. I could not believe that I was doing it, that I was actually there. And because I was a member, I got myself access to the Cowboys members exclusive bar, chilled out, listened to the music, and just tried my best to capture all the best photos I could, soak up the atmosphere as much as I could. I sat down on one of those grass hills as well at the old girl. And then my seat was, I made sure that I was sitting pretty much right on halfway. And the Cowboys could not have played any worse in that first half. They were bloody dreadful in that first half, and the Tigers were switched on after getting embarrassed the week before by the Canberra Raiders inside Bankwest Stadium. And the halftime score, I think it was 24 points to 6, or it was 18 points to 6, something like that. We were really bad. At halftime, the big screen showed what was happening inside the sheds, and it was just Paul Green on unleash mode, just roaring at his players. And I said, yes, that's what they deserve. That's what they bloody deserve. And it worked. The game ended up going to Golden Point extra time though. And at that point I said, look, it doesn't really matter to me now. They leveled it up. They showed some pride in the jersey. And if they lose this game, hey, I can say that I visited 1300 Smile Stadium on a night that had Golden Point extra time. Still didn't ease the pain though by losing to Benji Marshall and his friggin' boot. Every time I see that man live, whether I'm going for the Cowboys or the team that I've tipped, he's beaten me. Bloody Benji Marshall, fair income. And every Cowboys supporter would just, yeah, that sucks. We lost. We're going home now. Just another one, just another normal loss. I think I sat there for about 15 or 20 minutes with my heart in my foot. I was gutted that they lost in that sort of way, but obviously I don't regret it. I'm so glad I got to go to the old girl only on one occasion. And yeah, I would have kicked my own ass forever and a day if I didn't get myself right and straight enough to the point to get myself up to Townsville to go cheer on the boys. Yeah, so I'd probably put this as number 3 as my favourite game day experience ever. Number 2, the second preliminary final in 2017, Roosters versus Cowboys. Sydney turned up the heat this day, or Cowboys brought the heat with them from Townsville. It was such a hot day in Sydney on this day and night. The temperature at 7:30 p.m. was approximately 28 degrees or thereabouts, and the game itself was such a good quality game, especially what we got the night before where Storm absolutely steamrolled the Brisbane Broncos. The reason why this is so high up on my list is all my days, all my life, I'd wanted to be that Cowboys fan to wave a massive flag at a semi-final or preliminary final in this instance. And my mother and I arrived at the old Sydney Football Stadium about half an hour before the gates even opened. And when they did, we were walking around and we bumped into the pre-match entertainment. That was the Pierce brothers. That was awesome. We must have been the first Cowboy supporters to take their seats in the away supporters bay. And about 20 minutes into the contest, as Ethan Lowe was getting ready to slot his penalty goal for the first points of the match, the Sydney manager who represents Cowboys came down to my mother and I and asked, would you like to wave the flag? So after you've watched this video and you guys choose to go watch the Roosters Cowboys highlights, you'll find a person waving a massive yellow and blue striped flag in the stands. That's me. That's me. And there's a funny story to go along with it. As soon as Tamari Martin scored, I put the flag down, and as I was doing so, the end of the flag went bang into the side of the head of a Cowboys supporter that we had met the week before at ANZ Stadium. That's another reason why this is so high up on the list, because we met people the week before that came back, whether they were Sydney Cowboy supporters or Cowboy supporters from Townsville that had come down back and forth. They were mates by that point, right? Anyways, I've accidentally clocked this guy in the side of the head. I said, I'm really sorry, halftime blew, and I got up out of my seat and I went to the bar, came back down with 6 beverages, 2 of them were for me, and I gave the 4 beverages to the old mate. And he said, thank you for that. Yeah, no worries, man. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for doing that. So about halfway through the second half, he gets up and disappears up the back, comes back down, and he gives me 2 beers. He says, thank you very much. Let's go, Cowboys. And you betcha go, Cowboys. By the end of the night, I was full as a tick. I was waving that flag, screaming, they did it. They bloody did it. It was such an amazing atmosphere. The intensity, the emotion of seeing your team win through to the grand final. Well, there's only one other feeling that rivals it. Number 1, the 2015 grand final. The best game day experience I've ever had. And I get pretty emotional when I think and talk about the events leading up to, on and after. My mum on the preliminary final night had knee reconstruction and she was laying in hospital. A couple of days later, I was standing in line and I had an option to go to a concert that was happening that weekend in Sydney, or choose to buy a ticket to the 2015 Grand Final. And I chose the 2015 GF. And I hid it from Mum because I felt kind of bad because she couldn't go. She just had knee reconstruction. Anyway, I showed her a couple of days before, I think it was on the Thursday. Said, there it is. She says, you little bitch, why didn't you get me one? And I looked down at her knee, looked back up at her, and I asked her, are you fair dinkum? I must have got 2 hours sleep the night before. I was so excited for obvious reasons. I woke up at approximately 6 a.m. and I hit the road at about 8 a.m. Got to Sydney, parked the car inside that massive car park that they got there at Stadium Australia. And it was such a stinky day as well. Such a really warm day in Sydney. And I made sure I was there for the 2 grand finals that were played before the main event. There was the under-20s Manly versus Penrith, and there was the state championship, the Ipswich Jets and the Newcastle Knights. And wearing jeans that day, man, they were light blue, but they turned dark blue by the end of the friggin' night, let me tell you. Then the retirees came out, and that was beautifully done. Jessica Mauboy sang the national anthem, and Cold Chisel absolutely killed it. They killed it for the pre-match entertainment. Then the game occurred, Cowboys won, and where I was sitting was way up in the nosebleed section. And as soon as JT slotted that field goal in a couple of minutes after, sort of power walked down that ramp that they've got, and I made it to where the players run out of, about 6 rows back from the front, and took photos and soaked in them raising the premiership trophy and the pyro and confetti going off. And there's Jason Taumalolo with the premiership trophy walking by me. On the way back home, I was singing to my heart's content. I was screaming and singing at the top of my lungs, and I must have got home at about 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'll never forget it. Parked the car, and the door opened, the front door opened, and Mum was awake and she was waiting for me, and she had a Cheshire cat smile on her, and we embraced. It was awesome. And she asked, do you want to watch the grand final again? And I said, you bloody bet I do. Watched it, shed some tears, just couldn't believe it. And by the time we finished watching it, it was about 6 a.m. and we turned it to the Today Show, and there's Matt Scott, who was red-eyed and just absolutely elated, giving an interview to the hosts. He didn't have to work that day though. I had a shower, got changed, and I got to work an hour early, and I think I started at about 7:30 when I was meant to start at 8:30. And I was meant to go from originally 8:30 to 5 o'clock. At about 2 p.m, my body started to shut down because I was physically and emotionally spent. I called up one colleague, I called up another, and third time was the charm. I called a female colleague of mine up and asked her, can you please come in at 3 p.m? And she said, yes. Hallelujah. She came in at 3 o'clock. I said, thank you so much. And I got home and I watched the grand final just one more time, and then I just passed out. It's unreal. It's the best game day experience. It was just such an emotional week, and 24, 48 hours after the night as well, it was just absolutely sensational. So that's it. Those are my favorite game day experiences of all time. I'd really like to hear your game day experiences. What games have you been to? What stadiums have you been to? And where would you like to go? Because this video, once more, is in celebration, anticipation for the 2022 NRL draw. Whenever that will be released, we'll all be sitting down like it's friggin' Christmas morning, or at least I bloody will be anyway. Thank you so much for giving this video a crack. Hope you guys consider liking the content and even subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next week. Adios.